Now, I did a video a long time ago called Gearing Up in a Small Way when I had bought this saw. And I had a comment the other day, somebody asking me what I think of it after I've had this for quite a while. You know, it's a Husqvarna, but it's the lower end, the ones that are made in this country, supposedly by Poulin. You know, I wouldn't want it to be my only saw, you know, but like for a homeowner, like a suburban type of deal where you're just dealing with down branches and stuff, it works good on anything up to about 8 inches. You know, then you're really you're going a little far with it. But like for limbing and stuff like that, it works good. What I find I use it for a lot are these small construction projects. You know, like now, I'll be nailing these boards on, and I won't cut them. I'll just nail them on, and then I'll snap a chalk line and use the saw. Just run down the chalk line and cut them off. So I use it more like a skill saw than a chainsaw. Or like I used to use an electric chainsaw a lot, you know, a corded one. But then I'd have to run the generator. And I kind of like these, you know, a gas one is variable speed. You got a little better control over it, so I like that. I think, like I said, I wouldn't want it to be my only saw. Well, not for my situation, you know, because it's really not a wood cutting saw. You know, for cutting your firewood and stuff, unless you're dealing with the little stuff. But for these kind of things, it's a very handy saw. It doesn't weigh a lot. You know, with that short bar. But I think for this sort of thing, or even for limbing, you're a lot better off with a smaller, shorter barred saw. I think a lot of people get hurt trying to do things with a big saw that they could safely do with a little saw. You know, so this is a good addition to the lineup, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't want it to be my only one. And the things I don't care for are, you know, I worry about this plastic handle. I think if you just dropped it wrong, it'd snap that handle. Not a big fan of the primer type system for starting them, though that's very common on saws now, but not on the XP Husqvarnas. You know, so when I see that right away, I know, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. And the whole, you know, including the choke and the ignition switch in one tricky thing that looks like, well, it looks like trouble waiting to happen, but, and that's exactly the thing that when I had bought this saw, you know, I had bought it, I can't remember what I paid, like $70 or something for it, but it was from a store. It had been returned and had to be repaired, and so then they sold it at a lower price. And what had been repaired was this funky switch choke combination thing. You know, so, you know, I have my doubts about that. And I sometimes wonder about, you know, the recoil. You're dealing with plastic cogs in there, you know, that could be a problem. And the chain adjuster is really poor. It's a little thing in here that it gets out of place because there's supposed to be some plastic thing guiding it that is, I don't think I've ever seen one that wasn't broken. You know, so that's kind of a Mickey Mouse deal, but actually I used to do this with, I had some home lights I used to use. I just take that chain adjuster out of there, loosen the bolts, pull the chain tight, tighten the bolt, you know, ready to go. And actually you could do that with this too. It would work fine. You know, if they were to improve that, I would be a lot happier with it. Though, like for me, it really doesn't matter for what I use it for. But not a bad little saw. I hear a lot of people having trouble getting them to start, but that's you have to get used to that whole primer button and choke and all. I mean, they go and put directions right on it. You got to push the primer 6 times, you know, you got to do, and as soon as they fire, they're going to die, and then you got to take the choke off and then start up. But that's pretty much common on a lot of chainsaws. You know, you choke them until they pop, take the choke off, then they're going to start. But like this one now, when it's warm, it'll start first pull every time. You know, so if you're using it for this where it's up and down and stuff all the time, not a bad saw for what I paid for it. But like I say, it would be a horrible thing to have for my only saw. You know, but I do sometimes carry this one in the back of the M37 because if you have, you know, a lot of these, you end up with a little tree, you know, a little elm tree or something falls on the road. Well, this works fine for that. You know, so it's not a bad saw. It's just that it's the lower end, you know, and when I had been thinking about getting a smaller saw, originally I was thinking about getting one of the little XP ones. But then I ran across this deal, you know, and for what I use it for, it's sufficient. But it's nothing to be bragging on. You know, there's too many corners cut on these. But it works fine for what I use it for. Better than electric in a lot of ways, because electric, you know, it's on or off. You don't have the variable speed. I like having that. And you don't have, like with a bigger saw, you end up with a lot of rotating mass, so you can kind of get a gyroscopic effect going when you try to tip the saw. You don't have so much of that with this because it's a pretty small flywheel and stuff. So, like I say, I'm happy with it. But I wouldn't recommend it as your only saw. I would recommend it as a second saw or a third saw in a lineup, because like I say, for lemon and these little projects, when I see somebody using a 30-inch bar to do some small little cut, you know, that's just dangerous. But like here, well, let's explain what this is for. Is I'm making a platform to mount that pulpwood saw. I had to do that before to use it as a buzz saw. Then I can roll it up on here, and then I've got a bracket that I bolt on that makes the cradle to tip. That was what I did with it years ago before I even knew what it was. You know, now I know what it's for, but I'll be darned if I would have used it for cutting down trees. But it makes a good little buzz saw for cutting up, you know, odds and ends like the slab wood and stuff like that. So I'd like to get that set up. So I put posts down, and then like these, I had to notch them out. Well, that works good for that. You just cut you know, and then knock them out with an axe, and then plane her down. Good enough. You know, it works good for that sort of thing. But like I say, for construction, you know, that's where I find this to be a very handy little saw, especially that whole, you know, it'll start when it's warm, you just pull her and she's there, you know, so that works good. So I'm satisfied with it. I don't know what they sell for new. You know, this, like I say, was 60 or 70 or something like that. For what was a new saw, it's just that they had repaired the switch. But I wouldn't be paying more than, well, much over 100 for a saw like this. You know, there's a lot of saws out there. Or even, you know, like I say, I used to run home lights all the time, like these Super 2s and little XLs and stuff. They're great little saws for this kind of thing too. But there again, you really don't want them for your only saw. It's nice to have a big saw for actually cutting big firewood and taking trees down. I hate to see when somebody's trying to, you know, take down a tree like this big with a saw like that. That's quite a job. You know, it's a lot easier with a big saw. But when you're doing this small stuff, these little saws really shine. I could even get by with one, with a saw with a bar about a foot long. Would work just fine for a lot of the stuff that I use this one for. The good thing on these small saws, like say if you're cutting up old, like demolition on buildings, that sort of thing, where you've got a chance of hitting nails or rock or any of that, if you should damage the chain on these, or the bar, it's very cheap to replace, compared to doing something with a big saw. So they have their place. It's just that they aren't the only saw you should have. Unless, like I say, you're a little suburban homeowner, you got trees that branches fall down in the yard. Oh, that's great, But then you could get by with an electric one, which work good too. Like I say, I've got a couple of them little electric ones that I use for the construction stuff, or that I used to. But this little gas one takes the place of them, and I don't have to fight with cords and generators. Plus, just the variable speed is nice. I'm so used to doing that. But I'll finish this project up and get that buzzsaw on here, because that is very handy. It saves, like cutting up the slab with the chainsaw. Well, then you're picking it up, putting it down. It's nice if you can cut it on this, especially the stuff that you want to cut shorter to use in the cook stove. That little buzzsaw works good for that. Though I have cut a lot of oak about that big with that buzzsaw. I mean, pickup loads of that in years past. So it works good for that. But I will be using it mostly for the slab wood and for the wood for the cook stove, like I say. But no, I got no serious complaints. It's just that on a saw like this, it's plain where the corners were cut. And I know, like say, if you should break this molded plastic handle, well, is the saw worth buying? It doesn't take much of a repair to exceed the cost of the saw. I'd sooner have a better saw that's worth keeping. Where to put a new handle on would be, a sensible thing to do. Like I say, even about these little recoil, I just know I haven't taken it apart, because I really haven't had trouble with this saw. But like I say, I don't use it in rough situations. The only thing, like I say, about this chain adjuster, that's just a hokey kind of setup. They could have done better. I don't know why they always got to cut corners on that sort of thing. I think it's funny where the case here now, they've got molded in those sighting, marks. You don't go cutting down trees that involve you have to use those with this saw. That ain't what it's for. But if you use it within reason, it's a reasonable saw. It's got the chain brake on it. But I would sooner they left off the chain brake and did some of the other stuff a little bit better. That's just me about that. But like I say, it does not take the place of a bigger saw, but it's a good addition and saves wear and tear on your bigger saw. It's a 240 is what this one is, but they've got a whole line of ones like this. And now I see they come up with battery ones, but there I'm not going to get involved in, because although, yes, they would work fine, but then there's the cost of the batteries, the constant having to recharge them, which is not easy for me to do up here. I'd have to run the generator to recharge the battery for the saw, which wouldn't make sense. So the little gas-powered saw is a handy thing. And it has never failed me, though, like I say, I've heard people have a lot of trouble starting with it. That is true of anything with a gas motor on it. There's always a ritual that you have to learn to get that one to start. And they've got the ritual written down here if you follow it. It always works. You know, I'm just of old school where I think, okay, you pull the choke on, pull it a couple times, it starts, you push the choke in and it runs. But where they've got the switch and everything involved, it gets a little more complicated than these primer buttons. But it works. You know, not good, not bad, just kind of mediocre, run-of-the-mill, consumer grade, small chainsaw. But at least it's orange and it matches my other one, so at least I'm color coordinated. But I do find it to be handy for like this. I could do it with my other saws. You know, I could do this monkeying around, but this one is just, like I said, the starting and stuff, it's pretty handy, you know, for this. So I use it. Yeah, it's a thumbs up, sort of. I can recommend it within limitations.